I met this girl when I was 10 years old, and what I loved most, she had so much soul. Hey everybody, it's Old School Hard. Today we are definitely going to be talking about Allen versus Farrow, episodes 2 through 4. Okay, y'all. So at first I was like, I don't think anybody is watching this documentary. And yet we've talked about Woody Allen every time we've had a discussion about Bill Cosby and R. Kelly. We've talked about Woody Allen. We've talked about Harvey Weinstein, who is in jail right now. We've talked about all of these white men in comparison to the black men that were incarcerated pretty quickly. But, you know, the talk around Woody Allen has been very, very slow. You know, one of the things that I didn't want to happen was for him to be swept to the side and this documentary to be a hush hush whisper. Because R. Kelly's was not a hush hush whisper. I mean, it had a big premiere. There was so much controversy and talk behind this and Bill Cosby. It's only right. And I don't care if 10 years ago in 92, it was a big discussion and different things like that. We're talking about a different time now where the attention of women's accusations is huge now. The MeToo movement has caused quite a stir in which now when there is an allegation or someone telling their story, it's loud. And so I want this to be as loud as all of the other stories have been loud. Even if it means that we have to go back years, because Bill Cosby's things was not recent. Bill Cosby got accused for something he did years ago to a young woman, you know, not even Dillon's age. We're talking here 17. I believe the woman was 17 when this happened. So it's only right and it's only fair that the noise be made just as loud for Dillon. And so that is what I'm hoping, even as this documentary ends, that the talk is still very loud, very clear, that Woody Allen is a molester, that Woody Allen needs to be in jail, and I don't care how old he is and how pitiful he looks. I believe that him and Bill should sit right next to each other, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. I kind of want to get to the review of episodes 2 through 4, so sit back as we talk about that. So episode 2, and I won't talk about episode 2 that long because it didn't give that much. Out of all of the episodes, this was the most boring, and I didn't get that much information out of it, which is why I didn't do episode by episode, because I was like, episode 2 was kind of dragging. So in episode 2, what they focus on is the different movies that Woody Allen has made. And like I told you guys before, I have not watched a Woody Allen movie, and I probably will not be watching a Woody Allen movie. So they just talk about like how really his movies emulated his real life. And so we see that in one of those movies in particular, he develops a relationship with a younger woman, a much younger woman. And as he's trying to push her away and get her to realize that her youth and his age will be a problem, she seems to gravitate towards him more. She seems to want him more. She seems to love him more. And he just can't quite understand, you know, why she's so hooked, but he loves it also. You know, it's a game for him also, that he's able to not necessarily manipulate the girl, but stimulate her in a way that keeps her coming back. And so basically that's what episode 2 talks about, you know, just the fact that, you know, even in Woody's personal life, although he never publicly came out, you know, he did date, you know, a couple of younger women. And one of those younger women talked about her experience with him and how you know they kept their relationship a secret. She was really young. She was really, you know, naive, but she had taken to liking Woody quite a bit, and he had taken to like her quite a bit. But he also was competent enough to know that their relationship couldn't be on full display because of her age. But she just talks about their relationship, and then they talk about how Woody has always gravitated towards this liking of younger women. This idea that he, as an undesirable, quirky, awkward man, could still attract a younger woman because of all of those characteristics. So they talk about that. They also talk about his relationship with Mia, you know, how they did each movie together, how Mia and him had a great on-film chemistry, and how they produced movies with each other for years. Like, she literally didn't have to worry about work at all because she could always put herself in a Woody Allen film. The only thing is that's going to be to her detriment, you know, as the case with Dillon comes into fruition and different things like that. Not fruition, as the case with Dillon comes into existence. That's going to be to her detriment. But they talk about that. They talk about her prior relationships. I did not know that she was with Frank Sinatra. So, you know, Mia was a little baddie back in the day. She ain't all that bright, but she was a baddie. In the sense that when you're with somebody of that high caliber, clearly, you know, you become a woman that people like. You become a woman that people want to emulate. You become the it girl. And so that's what episode 2 talked about. It really didn't give that much because I don't care about his films. So that was episode 2. Let's get into episode 3 and 4. Episode 3 was probably my favorite out of all of the episodes because this is where the meat is. This is where the case against Woody Allen comes. And they started to discuss that. This is where they talk about Dillon and what she said. Mia took Dillon into the doctor so that Dillon could describe what exactly Woody Allen did to her. Now, the first day that she goes to the doctor, she really doesn't give him that much information. And then the next day she returns and she begins to explain exactly what happened to her with Woody Allen. Now, this all stems from a play date. Not a play date, but Mia and her friend, they run off to the store. They leave Woody Allen there with the kids and then a couple of the caregivers. Now, sometime during that time where they were gone and the kids were like playing in the house and doing different things in the house, Woody Allen disappears with Dillon. And according to Dillon, he takes her up to the attic. And in that attic, he touches several parts of her private area and uses his finger in certain parts of her private area. And so that is what she ends up telling Mia on film and then also to the doctor. And of course, the doctor opens an investigation on Woody Allen. Now, the case is going to be tried in both Connecticut and New York. And this is where it's really long, and so I had to watch it a couple of times. So basically, it comes out that Woody Allen is going to be charged with molestation, or there's an open investigation for molestation of Dillon, his adoptive child. So Dillon is also questioned by Connecticut authorities, and she's actually interviewed 9 times. Sunny from The View actually says, like, you don't interview a child 9 times regarding a sexual allegation. You just don't do that. But unfortunately, we're dealing in times of the 90s, and in the 90s, for some odd reason, they didn't have the gall or the common sense to know that anytime you interview a child that much, you cause the child to relive that situation again. You cause anxiety in that child and restlessness. Can you imagine being interviewed for the same thing 9 times, the same questions being asked of you 9 times, and you not having a reaction to that, whether it be that you start lying, whether it be that you start to make up things that are not on the case. It's so many things that can happen 9 times being interviewed, especially when you're 7. So Sonny talks about that. But so the Connecticut office that takes over the case, the thing that they decide to do is refer Dillon for an evaluation with Yale School of Psychology, I believe. And so Dillon is questioned by Yale Psychology, and Yale concludes that she does not know how to distinguish between imagination, fantasy versus reality. She's 7, y'all. So I don't know how she's supposed to do both, but she's 7. And so because of that, they had concluded that she probably was lying or coerced by Mia herself. And so this information, Yale actually sends this information to Woody Allen. So Woody Allen holds his own press conference in the 90s. I believe this happened in 92, and tells everybody, Yale, the big prestigious school that we all love, has said that Mia basically has coerced this poor child to lie about allegations. And so Yale said it, must be right. So, they just talk about how, number one, why would Yale even send off this report to Woody Allen first so that he can jump on and hold his own press conference? That's something that you don't do in a sexual allegations case anyway. You don't give your conclusions to the predator itself, but unfortunately Yale had done that. But because Yale has said that it had just pretty much changed the trajectory of the sexual allegation, people began to not believe the story of Dillon at all. And not only that, they started to demonize Mia Farrow. And so they started to believe that this was just a woman scorn, and Woody Allen made her out to be a woman scorn because I'm with the adoptive child, Soon Yi. Now she's just bitter. She's just angry. And that's the story, and that's how it sticks. Now, as I stated, the investigation is being done in Connecticut and New York. Now, in New York, they're not really playing games with Woody Allen. Kind of how they did in Connecticut, unlike what they were doing in Connecticut. They were not playing games in New York. This sexual allegation case gets sent to Paul Williams. Paul Williams is a great social worker. He had been given the social worker of the year prior. And so the director of Child and Family Services gave Paul Williams the case because they knew that Paul Williams could handle it. And so Paul Williams is doing his investigation, and he believes Dillon. He believes that young girl was indeed touched by Woody Allen. Now, as he's pressing towards these allegations and making it very, very known that he is with Dillon, he's getting pressure from his own office. And the more pressure he's getting, they are saying that he's insubordinate. And they get to the point where they say he's so insubordinate that they fire him. And this causes his own controversy because Paul Williams has an upstanding track record. He has had no problems. He's had over 800 cases and relatively done them quite well. And so he's fired surrounding just crap that's happened with this case. And he then, in return, sues Child and Family Services of New York and basically wins and gets his job back. But he's never put on that case again. And so basically it just showed the power of Woody Allen and the power of those that work for Woody Allen and what they could do with that power. Getting Paul Williams getting Paul Williams fired because he does not want to abide by this rule that Woody Allen could not be touched. And of course, New York, because this is Woody Allen's state, this is the place that Woody Allen resides. Because of that, the case is never really touched again or never examined again. And that's sad that there was that much influence that he was able to bring, where, you know, you get this black man fired, which wasn't hard to do. He is a black man, but you get him fired. And then not only that, when he returns, he's not able to touch your case again. And then poof, it's still Mia being the demon in the situation, and Alan being able to just skate on to asking for parental rights, full parental rights of all three of the kids, Moses, his son, and also Dillon herself. And so he has gained so much strength. He has gained so much momentum because of the power that he has. Not only can he mess with Child and Family Services to the point where they no longer look at the case, but then he has the audacity to say, I am the better parent than you now, and I am going to take you to court for full custody of these kids. And so Mia and him go through the battle of court. And it's so crazy because the one thing that is annoying about Mia Farrow is these phone conversations that she has with Woody. Now, in her mind, she believes that if she records these conversations, Woody is going to somehow slip up and say something that will be in her favor and then demonize Woody. But these phone conversations, to me, are damaging to Mia, in the fact that who still talks to someone who victimized their child? Who still has conversations with him where it almost sounds like she's begging? It almost sounds like she's, you know, really, really trying to get him to be honest about what happened. And it's just something that I was just like, Mia, can you not have these conversations with him? It almost sounded like she was begging to be back with him at one point too. And that was just annoying. And I just couldn't understand, like, why she was doing this. It was just like, Mia, like, you're not making no sense, girl. And I'm trying to stick with you, but I cannot, because you are doing the ultimate most. So the judge rules in Mia's favor, of course, because Woody has never exemplified fatherhood at all. And after the judge read through just the allegations and different things like that, he concluded what all of us conclude, is that not only is Woody just not a good role model or father figure to begin with, not only that, but everything that he read in that report said, I wouldn't put Dillon around you anyway, because there are situations in which, you know, we have these testimonies that show that you have made existing around Dillon just uncomfortable. And I'm not sure what happened that day, but I'm sure something might have happened that day. And because of that, I cannot. And I'm glad that judge had the common sense to read through everything, even though a lot of those court files were destroyed, to read through that and conclude the same thing. Oh, also, I forgot the one part of this that I didn't remember. The Connecticut case, the person that was in charge of it, he's interviewed in it. I can't remember his name right now. He's interviewed in the case, and he's basically concludes after the Yale report that Dillon is not ready or is not capable to handle a trial of sexual allegation. And I would say this, I understood where he was coming from with that, because I think that he knew, because of who Woody Allen was, the power that Woody Allen had. I think that he knew that this would have an ultimate effect on her, period. You know, all of the questions from the attorneys and the lawyers, they would have been damaging to a 7-year-old like Dillon. It would have been a lot for her to go through. And I think in his mind, he was like, I cannot put a 7-year-old through that. And for that reason alone, I can't go forward with the sexual allegations against Woody Allen. The only problem I have with it, and I think the only problem that a lot of us have with that, I completely understand what he was trying to do, but the problem that I had with that is this investigation could have been tried a little bit later. I don't think that it meant shut and close. I think that it meant let's reset and then let's come back to. And I think that's where I have a problem with, is that he didn't make a decision to pause and then give her time to come back to it. Not only that, I don't think he thought of the further damage it was going to cause to see Woody Allen, her father, over the years, still being praised, acknowledged as this great person, as this filmmaker, you know, having different actresses and actors basically revel over Woody Allen, him getting awards and recognitions, and what that would do to her psyche to see a man that did harm her and touch her still live a pleasant life. I don't think he understood what happens when you don't fight something like this. What happens to a young person that has to deal with seeing this man thrive. I don't think he ever considered that, and I think he should have considered that. And unfortunately, that gave Woody Allen all the power in the world. That gave Woody Allen the ability to adopt his own kids, adopt more kids. That gave Woody Allen the right to have visitation rights of the other kids. I mean, when he made that decision, I don't think he thought long term. And you could tell in his eyes that he was regretting that. Even though he said he stuck to his decision of her not being capable to handle the situation, I think now that the MeToo movement has come along and, you know, people are talking about their allegations, he looks back on it and he goes, man, you know, I gave this dude the power to continue on with life. I gave this dude the power to seem as if he was the victor, and that was not necessarily the case. Dillon just could not handle it. Doesn't mean that she was wrong. And I think the remorse that he had when he talked to her in episode 4, which we'll discuss, really showed. So let's get into episode 4 and then I'll be done. Episode 4 is basically about Dillon still very, very clear about what happened that day in the attic, still not relenting about her allegations towards Woody Allen, and basically how that affected her life and how she has strived to move forward since then. She's married. She talks a little bit about her marriage and the difficulty of intimacy due to, you know, the relationship or the situation that happened with Woody Allen. And, you know, just how that affects your relationships. And the husband talks about it as well. She talks about being a mom and, you know, envying the relationship between her husband and her daughter, but also being super protective of that daughter as well, and having to remember that, you know, he's not Woody Allen. And just really coming to terms with the fact that she is indeed an incest survivor. Woody Allen was her dad from the get-go. And so this is an incest issue. And she just talked about being an incest survivor. Also, they talk about her brother, and I can't think of his name, but he ends up working at the White House, being a correspondent for some of media, I think New York Post or something like that. But he works for a really reputable media outlet. And he talks about how at first he really didn't believe Dillon, but, you know, he had a conversation with her one day and really began to recognize that what she was saying was very, very true. And so from that, he decided just to go and be honest on every outlet that he could about her story, about Woody Allen, about how protected he is, and the PR behind him, how they protect him. He even talked about how, like, the PR company that Woody Allen was under would basically bully these media outlets if they said something bad about Woody Allen, they would ban them from everything, every press conference that had to do with all of their clients. And so he talked about that. He talked about, you know, how a lot of people kind of shunned him during the time for even coming back with these allegations, because I mean, all of this happened in 92, and here he was in 2012, I believe, bringing this back up, and people were just not at a place to hear it. They also discussed these actors and actresses paying homage to Woody Allen. And I talked about this before, but just how Dillon had to literally see these people just love and give admiration to and be grateful for Woody Allen, and how they didn't want to be involved in his personal life. And I've always found that to be funny, because molestation is not personal. It's not a family thing. Molestation should never be personal. And I mean, we don't have to know every detail of the situation, but it's not a family situation, whereas like somebody in the family has cancer or something, or, you know, so we don't want anybody to know. We're talking about molestation is something that if they can do it to one person in the family, then, especially if it's family, if they can do it to one person, they won't have a problem doing it to anybody else. It's never personal or family. It's always public. And so she talks about the effects of seeing this man be glorified by people, even though she knows that she's a victim of him. And the brother is just not relenting in this. And let's talk about the other brother, Moses. Moses, let me tell you something. Because Moses said relented everything in 2018. He came out with a blog post. He's the one that was adopted that didn't have a father. And so basically, Woody Allen kind of becomes his father when Mia and him first got together. Moses, you be lying. Now, there's too much documentations where they say you weren't nowhere around. All of this information comes up. And now you go and say, well, I was the man of the house. And as a man of the house, I was supposed to make sure of make sure everybody was where they were supposed to be. And that didn't happen. Moses, shut up. If you didn't say that back in 92, then ain't nobody trying to hear you talk now. First of all, I understand that you want a little bit of daddy money. And you want to have a secure and safe financial situation, but you was on bullshit for that. I will have to say that was some bullshit. And I swear, like, I would have had to fight him. I would have literally had to fight Moses. But stay your ass over there, and I hope it work out for you. I really hope it works out for you, because that was some damaging shit. But she talks about, you know, the fact that he did relent on that, you know. And then they talk about Sun Yi and how she made allegations about being abused. Sun Yi, it's too late. If you was abused, you could have said that in 92. Even if he told you to be quiet, it would have been in your favor if y'all both would have came out with that during that time. But for you to come out and you 40-something years old talking about, I was abused, Sun Yi, you lying. First of all, I don't think Mia has the competency to beat y'all. I think she really allowed you guys to be free kids. I think she allowed you to enjoy parts of your childhood. But baby, if somebody beat you, and you must be the only one that they beat, you know, even though all the other 9 kids was like, not true, ain't gonna happen. So, Sun Yi, shut up. Girl, like, you already fucking somebody 50 years older than you. Like, girl, be quiet. Like, just in general, I don't even see how she do it. Look at Woody's face. You can't tell me that she's attracted to that. Must be the money. But anyway, they talk about that. And it's so crazy. Like, in 2016, when Dillon came back out and started writing about Woody Allen and the charges against him, people were still not ready to admit that Woody Allen may just be a molester. They were not ready. And it's so funny how culture shifts, because when we get to the MeToo movement that really comes about in 2018, now everybody's ready to have this conversation. And now Dillon is not lying. And it's so funny how human development works. It's funny how a lot of these actresses and different things like that have reneged on their love for Woody and stood with Dillon. You know, and some of them have even taken the money that they've gotten from different films that he's done and given it to charity. And you know, they talk about how Woody Allen, how this has affected his work, and rightly so. Nobody should be working with this old fucker anyway. Like, this dude is a mess, and nobody should ever work with him again. And so they talk about that. And I already talked about Moses and different things like that. And there's one more thing that I wanted to talk about, and then I'm going to go ahead and end this video. There was a discussion in episode 4 that I wanted to talk about really quickly, and that is the conversation of art versus artistry. And it's a conversation that we've had with R. Kelly. It's a conversation that we've had about with Bill Cosby and several other people. Like, how do we separate art from artistry, and can you do that? I've always had the belief that you can separate art from artistry because we are introduced to art and not the person first. And I believe that when you're introduced through art, art is a stimulant. It makes you feel good. And so a lot of times when you have something that makes you feel good or a certain emotion in your body, you respond to it happily or with any adjective that describes happy. So if you participate in making us feel good, if you participate in making us feel better about ourselves, you are excused from being a fuckboy. You are excused from bad behavior because we are introduced to you through happiness. And I had to think about that for a while. You know, they talked about a lot of artists and their issues. You know, we all know that, you know, there were issues with Marvin Gaye. We know that there were issues with Ray Charles. We know that there were issues with, you know, some of our most beloved people. They had problems, but that's not our problem, right? As long as they make us feel good, that's not our problem. That we don't have anything to do with that. And so because of that, we're able to still marvel in the work that they've given us, whether that's, you know, music, films, and different things like that. And I really had to evaluate my position on that. I really had to take some time back and really go, but how does that make the victims feel? Like, how does that make the people who had to deal with their whole mess, how does it make them feel to see us be happy when we listen to their music, when we watch their movies and stuff like that? I will say this, a lot of us would not ever be that bold in front of that person. A lot of us wouldn't. You know, an R. Kelly victim, if an R. Kelly victim was in front of me, I literally would not play the music because I know that that wouldn't be right. And I think sometimes we have to think about that privately as well. If that person was in front of you, would you do it? That's almost like with any victim. I think you can like the art, but don't be bold about it. And I think that I'm going to have to remember that. I love what R. Kelly gave me. I love what Bill Cosby gave me. But publicly acknowledging that is harmful to the victims. So if I post that online and they come across it, if I post that me playing R. Kelly's music and dancing to it, that's damaging. That's triggering. Not only is that triggering to the victims, but people who also can relate to those victims because they've been abused themselves. I think it's important that we take time to realize that although we have nothing to do with the situation, although we were introduced and they gave us happy vibes and the stimulant that we associate with them is good energy, I think we also have to recognize that There are real life victims that don't need to see nor hear that you enjoy what what the people that harmed them did. The people that harmed them, I don't think that they want to hear or see them be praised publicly. So be mindful of that. I don't think that there is anything wrong with privately still kind of enjoying what they gave to the world, because I know it made you feel some type of way. But be very mindful that the victims in the case and different things like that, it still hurts. It's still something that they have to deal with. And there's nothing like seeing people be happy about some shit that made you sad. So that's all I have to say about that. I know a lot of you that came on my post was kind of upset because I was like, that little girl lied. Man, look at here. If that little girl lied, then I'd be lying too. There is no way that little girl would explain the way that she explained. And like that one lady said, you can tell when a child is coerced, and you can tell when a child is giving you information. So this is Old School Hard. Please like, comment, and share on the video. Let me know your thoughts about this documentary. Did you like it? Did you hate it? And I'll see you on Wednesday for another episode of Where My Girls At. Have a good day. Bye.